Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Allahumma aftah masami'a qulubina li dhikrik. Allahumma arina al-haqqa haqqan warzuqna ittiba'a wa arina al-batila batilan warzuqna ijtinabah. اللهم اجعلنا من الذين يستمعون القول فاتبع أحسنه. We praise and glorify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as is deserving His divine glory and majesty, and we send the best of salah and salam on our beloved, the beloved of Allah, Habibullah, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we plead to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to open our hearts to His remembrance, to His words, to understanding, to guidance, to obedience, to ikhlas and sidq, truthfulness. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us to internalize what we learn together of His words and to put them in action, because as we keep reminding each other always that it is not sufficient to know, it is essential to know, but the requirement is to act on what we know. Action, amal, not just ilm or knowledge. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to show us truth. The ultimate truth is the Qur'an. As Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Asdaq al-kalam, the most truthful of words is Kitabullah. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to show us truth as the truth and help us to follow it in the best possible way that we can, and to show us batil, to show us falsehood as falsehood, and to keep away from it. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us to do the best we can at all times. So today we are going to be studying together, inshallah, surah number 92, which is Al Layl. And as you know, this is closely linked to the surah before it, which is Ash-Shams, which we have covered in the past. And there are many parallels and some contrast between the two surahs, as we remember from Surah Shams that it started with 11 of aqsam, of oaths that Allah took, and then the jawab of the qasam and the consequences of people who have gotten the message, people who have rejected it. So keeping that framework in mind, we will start with this surah, which is also considered by most of the Mufassirun as one of the early Meccan surahs. When we finish with this surah, and please remind me if I forget to cover that, is we should have a clear understanding of the haqiqah of wealth, of mal. What is the reality of mal that we all hanker for, that we all spend a lot of time after, that we all desire? What is the real haqiqah? What does it get you and what does it lead you to? And we will talk about that in the reflection at the end of the surah. So Al Layl, as all of you know, means the night. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts this surah with some aqsam. Qasam is an oath, as we have said before, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes to bring our attention to something. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by what He has created. And in this case, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses some opposites in His creation. And the wisdom of what opposites highlight is that it brings one thing in contrast with another, so it makes both of them clear. So if there was only good in the dunya, we wouldn't appreciate it without seeing evil. When you see evil, it makes you appreciate good. Similarly, if it was all day, we wouldn't know. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if I were to make it day without night, what would you do? And if I were to make night endless, So the contrasts are there to highlight each one. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts the surah, وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَى. So it starts with the oath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the night. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I swear by the night, yaghsha, when it covers, when it envelops. So the night, as you know, as we see sometimes when we are traveling overseas, when they show you on the screen, you see the darkness coming and coming like an envelope to cover the earth. So the same thing, it's not a switch like the night comes on, it gradually comes on as a cover and covers everything. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَى. What does it cover is not mentioned. In the previous surah, يَغْشَاهَا, everything. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has left the answers open. Literally the ayah means by the night as it covers. The darkness as it covers. Covers what? That's left to us. And as we know, in the physical sense, it covers everything. Everything becomes dark. The earth becomes dark. What we can't see clearly. Things become, many things come out in the night that are not in the day. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that the night covers everything. He swears by it, and then he says, in contrast, the opposite, وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا تَجَلَّى, and by the day when it brightens, when it becomes full of clarity, because when the sun comes out fully, everything becomes clear. Just the opposite of what the night does, where everything becomes hidden, you can't see anything. The night makes everything clear. The day makes everything clear. So now in our life, what is our experience? We are either in the day or we are in the night. So that essentially covers our whole existence. So there's another way of saying that here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also swearing by time, because day and night is what time is. It's what life is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also taking an oath indirectly on all the astronomical events that occur in the universe, which brings day, which brings night. And of course, when we think of all of that, which is so fantastic and so complex and complicated, it should bring our heart immediately to, wow, and how about the one who created all of this? So we keep that in mind, that these oaths should also bring us in awe, in feel the azima, the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes the third qasam. He says, وَمَا خَلَقَ الذَّكَرَ وَالْأُنْثَى. Now, there are two understandings or two interpretations from the Mufassirun of what this ma means. Because there are different, the word ma in Arabic has multiple meanings. Sometimes it's used for denial. But there is something called ma mas'ula and ma masdariya. If we assume that this is ma of mas'ula, which means it is to be used as the one, as man, the one who. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, and I swear by the one, khalaqa, who create, dhakara, male, wal untha, and female. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is taking an oath on himself, because who created males and females? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says elsewhere that we have created everything in pairs. The only one unpaired, with no partners, no associates, no spouse, no children, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything else is in pairs. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking an oath on himself and by the one who created the male and the female. If we take this ma, which is the other interpretation, as what is called ma masdariya, it has to do with the creation itself, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is creating, is swearing on the creation of the male and female. That look at how amazing this creation is, that everything has a male and a female, and they have a purpose of reproduction, a purpose for life to continue in all forms. There is male and female in the plants, there is male and female in the fish, there is birds, everything there is a male and female. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has brought our attention to, now we can go and reflect on each one of these items, that how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the male and female complementary to each other. If we just take man and woman, they complement each other, they complete each other. That's why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, nikah is like half of your deen, take care of the other half, because they complement each other. One has strength in one way, one has strength in a different way. So one is more emotional, one is more logical. So if you put the two together between male and female, that makes a perfect unit, which is the family. So if we go into all of those, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking an oath. Look how wonderful is what He has created. The other interpretation, look how great is the one who created them. So these are the three aqsam, or the oaths that come. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by taking the oath of that time, is also reminding us indirectly that time is valuable. Be mindful of your time, don't waste your time. Because as we notice these days, we were just talking yesterday, one salah after another, one day after another goes by so fast you don't know. It goes by, it all blurs into one. Yet these are units which would make a huge difference in the akhirah. So after taking these oaths, this duality of opposites, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now brings us to what is this oath about. This is the bottom line of this. This is the main crux of this surah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna sa'yakum lashatta. Indeed, sa'yakum, sa'i is endeavor, to make effort, to work hard, to run, to not to run, but to like pace very quickly, like we do sa'i in at Hajj. We walk briskly. Any effort, what we want to do, what motivates us to do, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, your efforts, sa'yakum, and there are different meanings. Was this addressed to the kuffar, or was it addressed to the believers, to the Muslims? It can be addressed, because again it's open for everyone, that the believers are making their efforts, their endeavors, they're hastening to do certain things which hopefully are for the pleasure of Allah. Whereas the opposite, the kuffar, are making efforts to oppose the deen. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions at this time in the early Mecca are making an effort to present the deen, for the deen to prevail, and the opposite is coming, because that's how you see. So when we are faced with opposition, we shouldn't feel badly about it, because this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has constructed the system. That there will be good, there will be bad. So there is a push from here, there is a push from the other side. Khair versus shar. This struggle will go on. So there will always be believers and disbelievers that will be struggling against each other. Sometimes one gets the upper hand, sometimes the other gets the other, depending on their commitment. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that your efforts, whether it's Muslim, whether it's Kafir, la shatta is indeed shatta. Shatta means something that's scattered, that's divergent. And generally it means that something that was together, which is now split into many different directions. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that each one of us is has a different goal. Each one of us wants something different. Even those who want Jannah some may want it more and make more effort, some less, and so on and so forth. in the dunya. Some want to make an effort in this way, some in other ways. That all your efforts in the dunya, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, are scattered. They are in different directions. Okay? Why is He telling us that? So that we can know which direction, what effort we should be making. So after this key ayah of what the reality is, that everyone individually is making a different. 3 children, same family, each one has a different goal. Each one has a different level of enthusiasm, a different level of effort. Something else becomes more dear to one as opposed to the other. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then takes us to 2 opposite paths, 2 opposite efforts. From all these efforts, that all these efforts can be condensed into 2 general ones. So first, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us 3 characteristics of one way. Then He will give us 3 characteristics of the opposite way, just the opposites. So the first one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَأَمَّا مَنْ أَعْطَى وَاتَّقَى وَصَدَّقَ بِالْحُسْنَى. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Amma. Amma is a conditional harf. That's conditional, means Allah, it's a shart. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, as for the one, in other words, the one who does this will have this. And whenever amma comes frequently, it is followed by another amma, which is the opposite. As for the other one, if he does this, this is the consequence. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving a condition that the one who does these 3 things will have certain things in return. So what are those 3 things? He says, Amma man, the one, a'ta. A'ta means who gives. And the word a'ta generally means who gives in abundance, as opposed to ata. Ati. So a'ta, he gives in abundance. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't define, again leaves it open. Gives what? Because it's understood, and that's the style of the Qur'an. In the previous surah, Surah Shams, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually tells you that the one who takes care of the orphan, the one who takes care of the, previous surahs, it has been mentioned as to where to give. So that's known. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala leaves it as one characteristic, that the one who gives. Now giving can be your wealth, which is commonly what's understood. Now how about the ones who don't have wealth? Who give of their time, who give of their talent, who give of their effort, who help people in any way. So who is giving? Is not one who's always taking and withholding. One who gives. That's the first condition. Number 2, wattaqa, and has taqwa. And we've talked about taqwa in many different ways before. So what is taqwa? Generally, as we said, taqwa is to be conscious, aware of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be in dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a muraqabah of our own selves internally, what thoughts we are entertaining, what our desires are, and externally, but what our limbs, body is doing in the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So taqwa is an inner state, as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, at-taqwa hahuna, is inside. But anybody can claim to have taqwa. It has to have a translation on the outside. So taqwa has both. Okay, so what does this taqwa produce? It produces that obedience of Allah. What Allah has ordered, I will do. What Allah has prohibited, He has made haram, I will stay away from. What Allah loves, that is mustahab, I will do my best. What Allah has made makruh, I will do my best to stay away from it. This is taqwa. Also taqwa is to be always aware of the ni'mah of Allah, His blessings at all times, so that we can always be in a state of shukr at all times. Because a person who is not in shukr, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, is kufr. Means he denies the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's what taqwa is, that this person spends, gives, and then this person is always aware of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is fearful. Sometimes by giving, why should he be fearful? Because he may be fearful that I haven't given enough. Maybe he is fearful that I haven't given, maybe my ikhlas isn't as khalis as it should be, that my sincerity, my action lacked sincerity. So he has taqwa. And then the third characteristic was saddaqa bil husna. Tasdeeq means to confirm, to believe in something, and it's not sufficient to say you believe, but you confirm it by your actions. Okay. So somebody says, oh, I believe la ilaha illallah, and then doesn't pray. That's not tasdeeq. Okay. Tasdeeq is to obey every commandment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Was saddaqa bil husna. Now, what is husna? Now, there are different opinions of the scholars, the mufassirun, of husna. In general, husna is like we say ahsan. Hasan means good. Ahsan is the superlative, the best. But the word ahsan is in Arabic masculine. For something that's masculine, you will say ahsan. If it's feminine, you say husna. So husna is the superlative, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying here that this person confirms al-husna. What does confirm al-husna mean? So the opinions are, number one, some mufassirun have said that husna means the confirmation of la ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. What is the confirmation? To believe internally and to show it by our actions, by obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, both for the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the rights of his creation. That's one opinion. The second opinion is that he believes that if he gives, Allah will return it to him manyfold as a reward. That's also husna, one opinion. Another opinion is that husna is Jannah. That for what this person is striving for, the effort, sa'yakum lashatta, that particular one who is doing these, is looking for Allah's Jannah. Another opinion is that this is the Qur'an, the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the entire deen, because the best of all things, the husna, is the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are the opinions of different scholars, and it doesn't mean they're different because you can put it all together. I believe Shawkani has put it together that everything that a person does to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala under the envelope of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah would be called al-husna. So we confirm that by our actions and by the strength and sincere belief that this is the truth. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that there is one person or one group of people whose effort, whose sa'i, whose endeavor in this life is to give to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to have taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to confirm all of this by their actions. So this is the condition. So what happens as a result of this? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, therefore, as a consequence, سَنُيَسِّرُهُ لِلْيُسْرَ. As a consequence of that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, sa means in the near future, we will make easy for him yusra. What is easy to do? We will smooth the path for this person for certain things. Now, what are those certain things? The deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a general. Salah becomes not a burden, not difficult, can't get up, it's inconvenient, let's get it over, but becomes easy. Not only easy to do at all times, no matter where you are and how busy you are, it becomes easy as a facilitation from Allah. فَسَنُ يَسِّرُهُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it easy. Similarly, giving in zakat. similarly telling the truth, similarly having beautiful akhlaq, all of that, everything that leads to Allah's pleasure, everything that leads to confirmation of La ilaha illallah, everything that leads to Jannah is made easy for this person by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's grace. Why? Because he is doing those things, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes this person do that. Now we have the opposite picture. First amma was these three. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says wa amma, the opposite. And as for the one, man bakhila wastaghna. Now we are going to opposite. The one was a'ta, who was giving, spending. Now bakhil. Bakhil means, bukhl means stinginess. He's greedy for himself. He doesn't want to give. He cannot give. Bakhil. That's the characteristic of the other. That what Allah has given, because ultimately everything belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but he does not give. He keeps for himself. Now generally what happens when you keep for yourself, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may allow it to accumulate. When it accumulates, the wealth increases. And what does that increased wealth produce? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَنْ بَخِلَ وَاسْتَغْنَى. Istaghna means to feel that I am self-sufficient. I don't need anybody. And most of all, I don't need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because I have comfort, I have enough wealth. I know in my hard times I can always look at my bank account, at my investments, and I should be all set. So this person, in terms of their need, does not look towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but looks at their possessions, which they have accumulated by withholding, without having given. The one who Allah gives, who have given, are not included here, because there is certain rights on the wealth that who has given, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them on top of that superfluous. That's okay, because that's what Allah has written. But the one who withholds illegally, by not giving, by being stingy, keeping for themselves, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that as a consequence of that, it gives him istighna. He feels self-sufficient. I don't need anyone, which is a worse disease. Bakhil is bad, because no bakhil is going to enter Jannah, but to feel istighna, that I don't need anything, I don't need anybody because I have everything, I don't need guidance. So this person rejects that too, and he rejects Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because there is only one ghani. So this person feels he is ghani, but he is not. He is nothing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one who is free of all needs. Al-Ghani, Ghaniul Hamid. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us the opposite characteristics, the opposite path. This person withholds, doesn't spend, and feels he is independent, he doesn't need. And the third, the first one was Saddaqa bil Husna, who confirmed. This one, وَكَذَّبَ بِالْحُسْنَى, and he denies all good things. He denies and rejects La ilaha illallah. He denies and says that I need to do good. Said, no, this is mine, I'll do what I want. I will spend the money the way I want, because this is mine. So all the good things that he could have used his wealth and his talent, everything, he denies them. وَكَذَّبَ بِالْحُسْنَى. Now, one person who has these three traits that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned, the opposite, what is the consequence? The shart was, who does this? فَسَنُيَسِّرُهُ لِلْعُسْرَى. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that we will ease for him, we will smoothen the way to usr. Usr means affliction, to difficulty, and the ultimate usr is the difficulty a person faces in Jahannam, the difficulty the person faces in the qabr. And even in this life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes his heart dayiq, constricted. He has, in spite of having all worldly possessions, he cannot find peace and tranquility. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says we will ease his way to that. And it also means that Allah will then, because He's doing all of this, ease His way to doing evil. He will have more opportunities of evil open to him. He will have more opportunities of disobedience open to him. Just like for the other group, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens obedience, opens ways of khair. Allah opens ways of shar for these people. That's the law, because of what they did. So inshallah, we will end with that and open it up for comments and questions and answers. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.